Travel, and Mr. Price, in that order, please. Our first candidate for the County Property Appraiser is Mr. Terry Day.
Thank you.
Nope. We need to shut out loud.
Okay, good. Thanks. Well, appreciate you being here. Why I'd like to be the next County Property Appraiser is because we need a property appraiser that understands that he works for you and not for government. And I have a background that gives me the qualifications and experience to do a great job as your next property appraiser. I'm a small businessman. My brothers and I own the A.W. Peterson Gun Shop in Mount Dora, the nation's oldest gun shop, and available for all your hunting and shooting needs, I might add. I also have a military background. When I was a senior in high school, Syracuse High School, I joined the Army National Guard when I was 18, and now I'm 49, and I'm still in the Army National Guard, having served over 31 years. I spent a year in Iraq as an infantry first sergeant, and currently I serve as a military school administrator at Camp Landing, overseeing 100 staff instructors and graduating 4,000 students last year. I serve in the legislature, in particular the Florida Senate, where I was considered the most conservative senator in that body. I work on specific property tax issues, including laws in regards to the property appraisers that have saved the taxpayers millions of dollars. I am very proud of the endorsements I've received in this race, including the sitting elected Republican property appraisers of Polk County, Orange County, Seminole, and Volusia. Those 4 Republican elected officials have endorsed me as the most qualified candidate in this race. But really what's important is your endorsement. And I hope to win that today during this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is running for re-election as property appraiser, Mr. Ed Havel. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Havel. I started working in campaigns when I was 13 years old. I came from a conservative Republican family, and I've worked in campaigns ever since. When I got out of high school, I wanted to serve my country. I joined the United States Army. I was assigned to the Guided Missile Command. Had a secret clearance, worked on missiles. When I got out of the Army, I went to college at night and worked full-time during the day. And I received 2 separate bachelor's degrees. I continued on and got a master's degree from Rollins College, again, going to school at night, working during the day. After that, I really believed in school, and after that, I took courses from the International Association of Assessment Officers, and there was about 4 years in between that, starting that, and being elected property appraiser. Again, during that time, I was state president of the Florida Federation of Young Republicans. I succeeded myself. I was in for a second term. When I was elected in 1976, the office was manually run. I computerized the office first with a mainframe computer, and then with the PCs that we use today. I've worked with me, you've had 2 for the price of 1. I've not only been your property appraiser with every single roll approved by the Department of Revenue in Tallahassee, but also I've stood up for taxpayers of this county. I've fought other taxing authorities for the waste of your money. There's no one in this county who's more conservative than I am. And I have stood up when I saw chairs and furniture being taken out of the round courthouse when they renovated it, and were thrown in a pile in a barn in Umatilla. I worked to get Anna Cowan out of the Superintendent of Education's office. She was bringing in her cronies at 6-figure numbers. I have the office. I keep up to date. The people in my office know when they come to me for anything, I ask them, is it a need or a want? If it's a want, get out of here. I don't talk to you. I'm so conservative that the office furniture in my office, my computer, my printer, even the paper for my printer is paid for by my wife and me. The only thing you people pay for is the telephone on my desk. And it's not something I did this year. It's something I've done all along. I've been your property appraiser for 36 years. As I said, every single role has been approved by the Department of Revenue in Tallahassee. And I want to continue to do the job for you. I enjoy the people of Lake County. I know how to do it. I've performed. Everybody else can talk about what they're going to do. Talk is cheap. I've done it for 36 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our third candidate is Mr. Walter Price. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Our keynote speaker was talking about political correctness and how it's creeped into everything. And I'll give you a couple examples, even in the appraisal business. I'm an appraiser. I own Price Appraisal Group. I've been doing appraisals here in Lake County for the past 27 years. And we are not supposed to call a single-family house anymore because there may be more than one single family in that house. We're also not allowed to call a house a handyman special because it will discriminate against those that aren't handy. So the political correctness has just creeped into everything. As I said, I'm the owner of Price Appraisal Group. I've had as many as 12 appraisers working for me at one time, and the support staff and the research staff to go along with it. And if you believe, like me, that your property appraiser should be an appraiser, then I'm asking for your vote in August. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in real estate. I'm one of the few people that's actually working in the field they have a degree in. And I also hold the MAI and SRA professional designations from the Appraisal Institute. Now you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, the closest analogy I can come to is you can hire an accountant or you can hire a CPA. And so the designation elevates me to those levels. I have one for commercial and one for residential. And in that time, I probably appraised your house. Everybody in here, I even recognize a few faces who've probably been to your house and appraised your property. Why am I running for property appraiser? Well, I believe that there are errors in the tax cards that need to be corrected. Ed has mentioned that his tax roll gets approved every year, and that's true. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all the records are correct. There are properties where the square footages are wrong. There are also properties where the classifications are wrong and the tax amounts are way out of whack. And that's some of the things I want to do to fix. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question will be for Mr. Howell, and if the appraisal of property values requires some specific technical skills, how are you qualified to fulfill that position?
Well, I've kind of already gone through that, but again, I worked on complicated missile systems, which shows I can read things and understand them. Number two, I've been your property appraiser for 36 years, and unlike Walter, I have appraised everybody's home that's in this room today, as well as everybody else in Lake County. We've got 197,000 parcels of property in Lake County, and as I said, they've always been approved by the Department of Revenue. In some instances, like every 2 years, they come into the county with a secret list out of their computer in Tallahassee, a list of parcels, and they go out and appraise them. Then they come in and talk to us. And for example, they may come in and say, you've got a property assessed at $50,000, and we say it's worth $250,000. The problem they've got, and we explain it to them, is that when we looked at it on the assessment date, January 1st, it was a vacant lot, $50,000. When they looked at it in April, it had a home on it and was worth $250,000. They come in and they say you've got mobile homes in one part of the county, they're not assessed equally with other mobile homes. It turns out the mobile homes in one part of the county is up in a place called Villages. You know where that is? The other part of the county may be Paisley or Astor. We've got to educate those auditors from Tallahassee. As I said, we have never had a tax roll turned down. We have a GIS system that I set up the base maps for. I continue to do it at no cost to the county commission. course, the problem with the base maps, and Carrie Baker will tell you they're wonderful and great. You can't tell anything from a GIS system if you're flying and you look down. All you can tell is the crowd below you has hair or doesn't have hair. You've got to be out on the ground to see who's pretty, who's ugly, who's beautiful, and we've got to go out and visit properties. And one more point I'd like to point out.
Quickly, sir.
One more point I'd like to point out is that Carrie's been saying these other property appraisers in surrounding counties have endorsed him. I've talked to some of them. They told me, they were told I was not running for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Price, same question.
Thank you. The question is, do I have any specific technical knowledge? Well, I've been an appraiser for 27 years, and I hold the two highest designations that you can get from the Appraisal Institute. You might say, okay, what does that mean? Well, 2% of the appraisers in the world have the same two designations that I do. So I would say that puts me in good credentials to do the job. Last year, I was president of the Appraisal Institute for Central Florida, and I oversaw the activities of 16 counties and 450 appraisers. So I've worked with budgets, P&Ls, I understand what needs to be done. And so, of the three of us up here, I would like to tell you that by far, I have the highest credentials you can get in the appraisal business. It took me 9 years of solid, hard work to get those designations in order that I can serve you better as your appraiser. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Let me just sort of explain real quick how homes are appraised. Actually, no property appraiser is going to come to your home to appraise your home. That doesn't happen. That's not how it happens. Remember, Mr. Howell said there's 197,000 parcels in this county? Well, you can't individually appraise 197,000 parcels. So what we use is called a computer-assisted mass appraisal system. What it does, it takes all the sales data, all the homes that are being sold, it takes all that information, you drive it in the computer system, you subdivide the county into markets, and that means neighborhoods. And so that you compare your neighborhood, the homes in your neighborhood, to the homes in your neighborhood, to the homes in your neighborhood, and you use a computer-assisted program to do this because you simply cannot do it manually. And so I was blessed with the opportunity to oversee our Department of Revenue's property tax oversight division. And it is their job to audit all the counties and all the property appraisal rules across the state, and they are the ones that have approved the Wake County budget. And so they take data that the counties themselves send to the state, and they use that data as well as their own, all sales data. The Department of Revenue used to have individual appraisers. They no longer use individual appraisers. It's all sales data driven. So what that means is we have to have a property appraiser that understands that computer-assisted mass appraisal system, that understands the real estate market. And I'm also blessed to own several commercial properties and residential properties within this county. So I understand your neighborhoods. I understand that your house needs to be compared to homes in your neighborhood and not someone else's. As well as I worked in other areas involving property tax and property appraisal law that I was very hands-on. The Florida Association of Property Appraisers named me their Center of the Year. And it's also why the property appraisers that know these candidates best, the elected property appraisers, have endorsed me as the most qualified candidate in this race. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Price, looking first on the second question, which is, what is your position on the proposed constitutional amendment number 4 regarding property tax limitations, and how, in your opinion, will it affect Lake County?
On the November ballot, you're going to see several issues related to property tax that you're going to vote on. Amendment 4 is the most important one. Amendment 4 will allow for additional homestead exemption above and beyond what we already have for first-time home buyers, people that haven't bought homes in the last 3 years. It's also going to cap the increase in non-homestead property from 10% cap to only 5% cap. and it's also going to allow, I forgot what the third one was. Hang on.
First-time home buyers.
Got the home buyers. Oh, and also the most important one is if your just value of your property has gone down, it's going to make it so that your assessed value can't go over that. Right now, you can. You cannot go, I mean, if your property keeps going down in value, the property appraiser's office can keep raising your taxes. That will change that. Now, how will that affect Lake County? I am a Republican, I'm a fiscal conservative. This will all help homeowners. What this will do is this will help and provide an incentive to get our depressed housing market in Lake County going, because people that can get a larger homestead exemption, that's going to cut down their taxes and make it more affordable. It's also going to help create jobs in the county, and it's also going to help growth, economic growth in the county. I have with me a study that was done by the Florida Tax Watch, and they are predicting that Amendment 4, if it passes, will create 19,483 new jobs in Florida, and that will increase our gross domestic product by $1.1 billion, and it will also provide for an additional 319 to 383,000 new home sales here in Florida. So I would encourage you to vote for Amendment 4 this November, and I support it. Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
Thank you. I also support Amendment 4, and Mr. Price did a good job explaining those. I would like to talk a little bit more about some of the other issues that we've dealt in the legislature with property tax issues for many years. And it's rather convoluted and difficult, because a lot of our property tax law is actually in our Constitution. So that's why you'll see we always have to come to you for your approval, because the property tax law is in the Constitution. And so I was blessed to be able to work on issues such as doubling of the homestead exemption, which was needed. You know, originally, the homestead exemption in the state of Florida was $5,000 back in 1934. Of course, that's when homes were only worth $7,000. And then, of course, homes went up, and back in 1980, we had to move that $5,000 to $25,000, because the average home in Lake County probably in 1980 was only $40,000. Well, as a consequence of homes continuing to rise, we had to adjust for that, and that's why we doubled the homestead exemption. Now, what we didn't, and that is protected homeowners like yourselves. But what hasn't been protected is commercial properties and such. And so we did institute several years ago, which I voted for, put on the ballot, and you approved, was a 10% cap on the taxes going up on commercial type property. Well, it has proved insufficient. I mean, meaning we exempt school taxes from that cap, and we have seen commercial properties or property tax continue to rise, and that is directly hurting job creation. So we feel that a 5% cap, currently your home is a 3% cap, so your home value can't go up more than 3% a year. This will put a 5% cap on commercial property. Property tax is a dangerous tax. It is, quite frankly, probably a horrible way to pay for government. Because at the end of the day, do you really own your property, or are you just paying government rent? So we have an obligation to keep property taxes as low as possible in order to protect one of the fundamental rights of this country, and that's property rights and home ownership. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howell.
Everybody listen, Ed Howell's against Amendment 4, and I'll tell you why. He has commercial property. He's going to get a cap on his property instead of 10%, 5% if it passes. Guess what happens to the difference in the 5% he was paying last year? You people are all going to pay it. He talked about the homestead doubling. Well, the homestead doubled in the fact that the first $25,000 of your assessment is exempt, but you have to be at $50,000 or higher to get that second $25,000. In other words, if your home is assessed at $49,990.99, you don't get that double exemption. There is a double exemption called Save Our Seniors. That exemption gives you that $25,000 to $50,000 break, but it's got strings attached to it that says you have to be 65, have homestead, and at the same time, the income from everyone in your household, whether they're on the deed or not, your income from every single source cannot be, it's coded to the Consumer Price Index this year, it cannot be higher than $27.30. If you look at these amendments, you'll find there's two ways to get them on the Florida ballot. One is for somebody to go out and collect about 700,000 or 800,000 signatures statewide, or the legislators, because the lobbyists tell them they want lower taxes for their clients on their business properties and their houses and other things, and we'll put some sugar in there for the taxpayers. The legislators only need a supermajority vote to put the amendment on the ballot. It goes on the ballot. Right now you're seeing ads on television. It says vote for Amendment 4. Look at Amendment 4. Look at how it affects you people, and you're going to find there's a transfer of taxes to the people that do not have the non-homestead property and the other things. So if you have a homestead, you need to really look at Amendment 4 very carefully, because there's a lot of money being traced in Tallahassee that comes from lobbyists to get these things done. The lobbyists, by the way, have more money than you or you or you. You give a legislator $5 or $10, the lobbyist is giving them thousands of dollars through different political committees. Read it.
Mr. Baker, you're up on the third question, which is, are there areas where a property appraiser's office can be more efficient or effective?
Thank you, and I'd like to start out and tell you what I've already done to help for efficiency, better services, reduce costs to the taxpayers. And it's directly benefited not only the Lake County Property Appraiser's office, but everyone in the state. I passed a pretty neat piece of legislation that says, just a little background, all those 197,000 parcels, state law required that within every 3 to 5 years, appraiser had to visually inspect those properties. Well, as you can imagine, you had appraisers running all over the county constantly having to look at vacant lands, having to look at this home, that home, to meet that requirement. Well, my bill just said as long as you had a good, clear, clean satellite, well, not satellite, but an aerial photograph, that if you could clearly see that property, that his appraiser could just sit in the office looking on a computer screen and checking the block. If it was a good picture, clear, no trees obstructing it, that he could sit there and check one property after the other, meeting the state requirement. As a result of that change, in the last 3 years, across Florida has been tens of millions of dollars in savings and efficiencies. So that's what I've already done. A couple of things that I'd like to do in the future is one is online submission of information to the property appraiser's office. If you're submitting for a homestead exemption in Orange County, 65% of all homestead exemption submissions are done online. Here in Lake County, it's 0. Now, I don't know if I can reach 65%, but I know I can do 0. So that's one of the things I want to work on. And then also, these aerial photographs, they have a sophisticated computer program that matches the aerial photographs, and it will actually measure buildings. Volusia County, all their commercial buildings are now measured by this computerized system utilizing this technology, and it is saving tens of thousands of dollars in Volusia County right now by using that system. And how you'll be able to judge me on my efficiencies in this office is that we have many vehicles the property appraiser office owns. You'll be able to drive by that parking lot, and we're going to slowly get rid of those vehicles as we become more efficient. That'll be an easy way for you to judge whether we're saving the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you. First of all, if you go to the property appraiser's website here in Lake County, you'll find you can do the same thing Mr. Baker was talking about. He didn't do his homework for your homestead exemption. You can do it on the internet. Number 2, legislators claim they worked on, sponsored, whatever. They co-sponsor bills in Tallahassee. It's my idea, and I got you and you and you, and we'll be all co-sponsors for it. So somebody saying they worked on the past doesn't necessarily mean it was their bill. You got a lot of legislators up there whose bills fail, get died in committee and things like that, and they still get credit for them because they co-sponsored something. Number 3, our property appraiser's office is one of the best in the state. Our website is one of the best in the state. It's easy to do. And for you taxpayers out there, Washington County, with 22,000 people, is the only appraiser's office in the state of Florida who gets a better bang for the buck. Every other appraiser, including Volusia County, gets a lot more money by their taxpayers to do the job. 2 to 3 times more money than you're paying for your property appraiser's office. 2 or more times the number of employees that you've got. Mr. Baker corrected himself on that last question when he said you can't physically look at 197,000 parcels, but then he's saying every 3 to 5 years you've got to go out and look at those parcels, which is correct, Mr. Baker. He doesn't understand it, and I have been doing this for 36 years. I'm qualified, I've proven it, these people are talking, but hiring any one of these people would be like buying a lottery ticket. It's like them saying, I'll do your brain surgery for $50,000, whereas Ed Howell will do it for $100,000. But on the brain surgery, who would you go to? Somebody that doesn't know anything about brain surgery and save a few dollars? I've done both. I've saved you tax money over the last 36 years, and please don't forget that when you go and vote on August 14th.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Price?
Yes, I believe that there are some efficiencies that can be improved at the property appraiser's office. The aerial photography is an area where service can be improved. It doesn't apply in all situations. For instance, if you are looking at a vacant piece of property and it was vacant last year and it's vacant this year, then pretty much you don't need to go out and look at it. You can tell it's still vacant. Also, you can see that they've added a building to it. So then you could send an appraiser out to look at it. The technology is great if we can afford it. I can tell you from my 27 years of experience, nothing beats a human pair of eyes for looking at a property. You don't know the condition. You don't know if there's a sewage treatment plant next door from an aerial photography picture. More stuff does need to be done online. You can download forms from the property appraiser's office, but you have to mail them back in or come into the office and physically deliver them. If the whole service could be upgraded to where you could actually apply online, it would save postage, time, aggravation for everybody. The technology in the office needs to be improved. The appraiser should have tablet PCs in the office so they're not duplicating paperwork. When they get back to the office, they can take care of it in the field. And one good measure of how well the property appraiser is doing is why don't we cut down on the number of petitions that are filed before the Value Adjustment Board and have more conflicts settled in the office by the appraiser and his staff instead of having to elevate it to going to the Value Adjustment Board or elevating it to go to court just to fight something that could be handled in the office. The aerial photography, again, I can give you a perfect example of why it doesn't always work. A person that I know, their property assessment was increased because they said they'd made an addition to the house, and when the property appraiser's office got out there, it was simply the shadow from the time of the day casting on the house, and it made the roof look like an addition to put on the house, and it actually happened. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, final comment now from our candidates, starting with Mr. Howell.
I think I pretty well covered everything. What's the old saying? Remember Animal Farm? They said some are equal, some others are more equal than others. We treat everybody differently in our office, or we treat them the same way. We don't treat a person because of the influence like they do in Tallahassee because they've got a big checkbook. We treat everybody the same. Mr. Baker, Mr. Price came in the office, they get the same service as, pick a name, the governor of the state of Florida. That's the way way I've run this office over the years. That's the way I want to continue to run your office. We keep up with technology, but I look at not only the cost, but I look at the cost-benefit analysis. What is the mission of the office? So many of these offices build bureaucracies because they keep adding things they don't really need to do their job. For instance, some of these offices have in-house attorneys. We don't have an in-house attorney. I've got an attorney firm that specializes in this work, and I pay them by the hour, and I can get on the phone and get an answer in 3 minutes when it takes in-house attorneys or some non-appraiser attorney 2 to 3 weeks to research something, and you're paying for it all. We've got to get these costs of government down.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Yes, thank you for coming out and giving us the opportunity to let you get to know us better. My name is Walter Price. I'm looking for your vote in August. My wife Barbara and I have lived in Lake County for 32 years. We raised our 2 children here, and we now have 4 grandchildren here. I am a qualified appraiser. I'm not a professional politician, and I think it's time that we have citizens step forward that aren't professional politicians and run for some of these offices, especially ones that are qualified in the position that they're seeking. You wouldn't elect a state attorney who wasn't an attorney, so why would you elect an appraiser who's not an appraiser? How can the appraiser, if he's not an appraiser, train his people properly? How does he know if they're doing their job correctly? How can he answer a question for you about market value if he doesn't know how it's derived? Senator Baker passed plenty of legislation in the state dealing with appraisals. Doesn't make him an appraiser. He passed health care legislation as well. Doesn't make him a doctor. In fact, I bet Mr. Baker probably can't even tell us what standard of the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice applies to mass appraising. So I just want to let you know that I think it's time we have some new blood in the office, some fresh blood, not a career politician, not somebody who's going out raising all kinds of money. Why? We need a good person in there, a good solid person in there with morals and ethics, and I'm your man. I can't tell you how many customers I've lost over the years, particularly banks, because I wouldn't go along with their hanky-panky and raise value just to make loans work. I wouldn't do it, and I've lost a lot of business because I stand my ground, and I will continue to stand my ground for what's right for you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Baker?
Well, thanks. I guess I'm getting a few shots thrown my way, but that's okay. Folks, I was born and raised here. Born in Eustis, still live in Eustis. My wife was raised in Leesburg. I have 3 kids. Lake County's my home. And I know Lake County. I love Lake County. And that's why I first ran for office. It's because I love the folks here. And I'm also a constitutionalist and a small government conservative. And I believe in protecting property rights. And it is incredibly important that we have a property appraiser that understands that understands that our nation was built on these rights. And I'm not a certified property appraiser, but I have a body of work, of legislation that some I co-sponsored, some I wrote and sponsored, that deals directly with this office. I've done enough work that the Florida Association of Property Appraisers named me their Senator of the Year. I've done enough work that 6 sitting colleagues of Mr. Happel, elected property appraisers, have named me as the most qualified candidate in this race. Because they know I'm capable of moving this office forward, embracing new technologies that are not only going to help you provide better services, but at a reduced cost. So I'm very proud of my experience. I'm very proud of my accomplishments in this area. I feel that I've represented you well, and with me you'll get someone that's going to stand up for you in other ways. And Mr. Price mentioned, on the ballot this November is a Health Care Freedom Act. That's a constitutional amendment that says that protects you from being forced into Obamacare. Now you can say, what does that have to do with a property appraiser? It doesn't. What it has to do is understanding Kerry Baker, who's standing up against Obama guns during the state of emergency. If you heard of the 10th Amendment resolution, I was the first sponsor. If you ever heard of the No Foreign Law, I was the first sponsor of that in the Florida legislature. So I'm a constitutionalist, a small government Republican. I love serving, and I'd love to serve as your next property appraiser. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.